Wicked hearts have sweetest smiles. Chapter 4. The room slowly got shaded until the two remaining spotlights laid themselves upon both the persons in the midst. Euphemia, seated on a throne-like armchair which was placed on a platform that was several meters higher than the rest of the room itself, was one of those. The fact that she was towering above all the other people appeared to make her feel uneasy and diminish the radiant smile in her pretty face. The platform was connected to the floor by dint of a staircase emerging from the ground. On the first step, Private Suzakus was kneeling in front of his princess with a lowered head, stabilizing himself with his hands pushing against the bare, cold ground. The choir Aveline had specifically flown in from Europe soared from the obscure area in the very next moment, just to gather at the end of the stairwell, and they began to intone the anthem of the Holy Britannian Empire, accompanied by the fitting music that emanated from hardly visible loudspeakers.
What a waste.
The man next to her groaned theatrically. Aveline squinted her eyes, but was not able to identify him. His voice neither gave any hint of his sameness, so she assumed that it was just a lower noble. Honestly, which royal family member would just start a conversation with a foreign woman standing next to him during a ceremony? She shook her head over this ridiculous assumption.
What do you mean, if I may ask?
She wanted to know with a tad of lordliness underlining her voice.
Why give knighthood to scum like an honorary Britannian? Especially to a filthy 11!
He scoffed and laughed a sharp, cold, and terribly arrogant laugh.
It sickens my heart to see this. Poor Euphie must be so confused to choose such an unworthy individual.
Aveline knit her brows, slowly realizing that this man standing so close to her could under no circumstances be just one of the mere gentry.
How could Schneizel even allow this? He must have lost his mind.
You should guard your tongue, Clovis. I won't let you talk about her sister like this. And should you intend to repeat that, I will have to speak a word with Father about your future use in our wonderful Britannian Empire.
Second Prince Schneizel positioned himself between them, still appearing rather kind, but a tone in his voice advised caution, so the Prince Clovis La Britannia backed off a bit and sneered presumptuously, evidently not paying deference to his elder brother. He then plunged into the sea of humans standing around in a large room.
Alas, I wish Clovis would be able to act his age. He can be so immature when something does not suit him.
Forgive me, Your Highness. If I had known that it was Prince Clovis I was talking to, I would have never spoken in such a tone.
Oh, don't mind that. Perhaps countering him with his own condescension teaches him to treat other human beings with the same amount of esteem he expects to be treated with.
After seeing Aveline's still insecure expression, he added grinningly,
But between you and me, I seriously doubt that.
An unexpected chuckle escaped from her lips, and she immediately held her hand before her mouth. The chorus ended, and the entire hall was enwrapped in deep taciturnity again. It almost felt like everyone was holding their breath, prevenient and observant. Princess Euphemia, staggering a bit when arising from the heavy armchair, now squared her shoulders, and in the very next moment the lights of the heavy chandeliers went on again.
Private Suzakus, son of Japan's latest Prime Minister Genbu Kururugi, ace pilot of the Special Corps and Honorary Britannian, I hereby ask you...
She took a short break, only watching the man kneeling in front of her with an affectionate little simper.
Will you vow your loyalty to me and furthermore to our beloved Britannian Empire?
I will.
Suzakus still was facing the floor, and Aveline pitied him for remaining in such an uncomfortable position for such a long time.
Will you acknowledge me as your princess performing your duties and putting my commands into execution?
I will.
And will you, should that time ever come, protect and shield me, even if it means that you could lose your own life?
I will.
Was his undelayed answer to the last question.
You shall arise to your feet now.
Suzaku Kururugi obeyed without a moment's hesitation, and thus revealed his face to the princess before him, as well as to the guests standing all around. The resplendence in his eyes, clearly deriving from unfeigned pride, mixed with his efforts to stand tautly and appear objective, induced a sense of emotion inside the princess, and she was hardly able to refrain herself from not embracing him, putting her arms around his neck, with her hands gently touching his hair, and finally kissing him softly. But instead of doing just that, she cleared her throat and tried to withstand his glance.
I hereby grant you permission to call yourself a knight, and hereafter every guard will address you as such.
She took a step into his direction, holding a white brooch, a sign of knighthood, between her fingers. Her hands shivered when she attached it to his suit, then scratching it over it once more so it could shine brightly in the clear light. Her knight then took another deep bow, retained her hand, and kissed it tenderly. Where before was silence, there now were all the people applauding, lasting several minutes until Princess Euphemia and Suzaku Kururugi stepped down from the platform, still smiling restrained but obviously blissful, almost like a newly married couple.
Heartwarming, don't you think, Miss LaCroix?
Prince Schneizel stated when watching his younger sister striding through the crowd at the sight of the man she admired so much.
Finding true love in the midst of such impairment and troubling times sure is astonishing.
Yes, indeed.
Aveline replied and sighed deep-drawn, while she too peered after them. In that very moment her heart was craving for a companion, a lover, a soulmate. Someone she could rely on, a man who showed her what true love felt like, what mutual trust stands for, a partner that satisfied her desires, and whose desires she wished to fulfill as well.
Oh? Why so sorrowful all of a sudden?
She winced at his apprehensive expression. He had averted his eyes from his sister and her knight, combined with the compassionate undertone that accompanied his voice.
It's nothing, Your Highness. Forgive me. I must have been lost in the corridors of my mind.
Embarrassed by getting caught in the middle of her daydreams, she turned her head to the side so he was unable to see the blush crawling up her face.
Let's see. Maybe a dance will cheer you up.
He offered her his hand and even fleetingly indicated a curtsy.
Your Highness!
She gasped in surprise, with her eyes wide open, staring puzzled at the prince, who wore a smile on his lips she simply could not classify. But it was of no matter anyway. He, the second prince of the empire, not only was willing to dance with her, he had also dropped a curtsy, albeit it had just been a small one. A bright grin spread on her slices, and Aveline united her hand with his, and let him lead her to the merely visited dance floor. Her heart began to race when he placed his fingers gently on her waist, and pulled her a bit closer to himself.
I'm not sure if I'm actually able to dance at all,
she confessed and grinned embarrassed. Prince Schneizel laughed silently.
Just unwind yourself and let me guide you. I will take good care of you.
His hands held her tightly, and his arms offered safety and shelter from the countless eyes that still observed her with judgmental gazes, the endless whispers infused with envy and hate. Aveline's indisposition that had returned moments ago almost instantly dissolved when she felt his warm touch on her chilly skin, the mellow fabric of his gloves caressing it prudently, as if it was fragile or easy to wound. Prince Schneizel aimed to state something flattering, words that made the corners of her mouth lift up in joy and let her cheeks shine light rosy, but got interrupted harshly.
Schneizel!
Clovis Britannia's boastful voice, along with his raised eyebrows, cut through the idyll of this beauteous moment. His Highness sighed not audibly, put on a friendly smile, and turned around to his brother.
Father wants to see you over video call. You should not keep him waiting,
he added insolently after seeing the second prince hesitate for a few seconds.
You are right, of course, dear brother. Milady.
He turned towards Aveline, an accusatory expression lying within his gaze.
I beg your pardon, but I cannot ignore this request.
Your Highness, please. There's no need to apologize at all. I will remain here and await your return in the meantime.
She bowed briefly and watched him walk away, followed by his impudent little brother. What a shame that their dance had to end so quickly. Aveline had felt absolutely comfortable and would have enjoyed to spend more time with him this evening. She pouted for a few seconds, but then she decided to join Euphemia, who, all by herself, stood aside the crowd, seeming lost and uncertain. The princess was more than grateful that someone befriended her and started to speak without pauses or commas, but she was unable to focus on her anyway, for she was busy throwing glances to the big golden door in anticipation of His Highness. Euphie talked happily about the words her knight had whispered into her ear after the ceremony, until Aveline suspended her flow of words.
I'm sorry, milady. Can you excuse me?
It was clear that she had to seek out the restroom, so the princess, who sometimes was easily offended when getting interrupted, giggled like a little girl and shooed her jokingly.